Yo guys, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to break down and kind of run through how I made the opening track to the album Future Desert. So the first thing I did was open up the EXS24 sampler synthesizer, and using a vocal hit that I already had loaded in from a previous project, I decided that could be the opening track. So I wanted to create some ambience. Didn't want anything too complex, as this track was going to set the mood for the whole album. So I've increased the reverb 2 bus to about kind of 11 o'clock-ish, and then I've only done single notes on the instrument, and here's what it sounds like. So then, using a technique I've used before on previous albums like Levels and Levels 2, I used the classic analog arpeggiator synth, and I've moved the arpeggiator from the preset that it was to 8th notes. I've then removed pretty much all the plugins except for the EQ. I've increased some of the highs just to kind of fit through along some of the bass line. And that's pretty much just the start of the track. It slowly builds up, but here's what it normally sounds like. There are some vocals that do go on with this intro, but I'll save that for another video, as there's a few different bits and bobs that I do use. So as I said, I want this track to kind of build up before a kind of big drop. So I've just copied and pasted over the classic arpeggiator synth, and with this I've taken off the arpeggiator for this one, as I want a bit more control, and I've gone into the synth and I've decreased the attack so it's hard hitting, straight to the point. Now that's quite thin on itself, so I decided to add a higher pitch version of this on top of it. And I didn't want to add too much, as I wanted to slowly build up. So next up, I just copied and pasted over the previous instruments, and I've stuck an arpeggiator on there just to give some quick movement to it, again slowly increasing the dynamics of the track. I then started to introduce the main lead synth, so it's kind of recognizable before the actual drop happens, and I've taken out a few effects such as the kickstart, the sidechain plugin, and the Space Designer reverb. So then I wanted to add the drums in, so I used a normal kick, the 909. I will be showing up a setup of how I do all my drums. The kick was added along with a sampled drum and bass snare that I've used on quite a few tracks as well. And this bit I knew was going to be the main build up to it before the drop, so I wasn't going to change too much. I just wanted to add a bit more speed and a sense of urgency. I've also added a few little effects. I've got a whole sample library that I've been using for a few years now. Again, I will go into that in a different video. Just also a little mention, I've cut the main riff in half, so it just adds another sense of urgency to it. The drums I wanted to pop, so it's pretty much the same setup as the last video, because I do keep them the same, but I wanted the kick to pop. So what I've done is I've got 2 kicks. The 909 is the classic one with the same setup as the other video, and then I've got a dub kick still from the Ultra Beat drum synth, and I've taken out the lows in that just so it's kind of hitting you in the face and it kind of sticks out a bit more. The hats and the claps pretty much always stay the same. I've just added the snare on top from the main kind of build up. By doing this, it kind of makes the clap and the snare work together, so they pop out a lot more. Same pretty much with the kick as well. With the basses, this is my go-to kind of preset that I've experimented and kind of changed to my liking. So I've got a low sub version of it whereby it's just a simple sine wave. Then with the higher one, it's got a saw wave on there just to kind of stand out a lot more, with making space for the low frequencies by taking out some of the lows. The main melody is exactly the same as it was in the previous bar. However, I wanted it to pop more, so I put on the kickstart sidechain plugin just to kind of help with that. Just experimenting with a few different hits. I've used the vocal hit and created like a little effect from that, and here it all sounds together. And you can see how that vocal hit just adds some movement to the whole kind of drop. As always, I don't like to keep things kind of samey, so I just changed up the main hook and then I added in the vocal hit, but this time with a kind of different melody to it. So next up, I knew I wanted to kind of have a break, a little sub drop, so to speak. That's my own kind of terminology for it. So with this kind of sub drop thingy, I wanted to just completely change it up. So I wanted to bring some new instruments in. This trance stab, I've kind of experimented again. It's always a good way to start off with a preset and then just mold it to kind of what your needs are. With this trance stab, I've decreased the ADSR quite heavily, just so it's very hard hitting and I have a lot more control. I then really love what we did at the start with the kind of slow moving bass, so I wanted to repeat that, so I added that on top of the trance stab. The vocal line still stayed the same as the second half of the drop. So then we come to the kind of second drop. I'm using the classic analog synth again as an additional tool to kind of create movement. The melody here was going to be the main melody for the drops, but I thought having two separate little drops with quite distinguishable features just enhances a track, for me anyway. And then again, I've added the same voice with the single notes just on top to kind of just refer it back to the beginning, just so it's a bit recognizable. Because I knew what I wanted to achieve, I decided to end the track the same as we started, with very minimal instruments and to kind of create atmosphere yet again. I feel like the track does what it's meant to do. It's the intro track. It's meant to set the scene for, you know, the kind of topic at hand, the album, so to speak. I knew I wanted the drop to sound something like EDM-esque, such as like Nicky Romero, Hardwell kind of vibes, like EDC. I think I did a pretty good job at replicating it. I used a few reference tracks such as Stevie Aoki's Neon Future and stuff like that, as it is the same kind of vibe I was going for. You know, reference tracks aren't a bad thing. As Alexis Ohanian said, everything is a remix, so we are kind of influenced by everything we listen to. Which, you know, is obviously a good thing. There's a few techniques I've kind of showed off there. If you do have any questions, then you can obviously just message me. And always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe, and see you next time. Peace.